Hi everyone, I'm a newcomer to YouTube and this is my first video. I love films, especially monster films. I love video games and multiple other pockets of hobbies and interests that I think are worth talking about. I want to exist as a sort of voice who is not particularly professional or intellectual in his discussions about these subjects, about these interests, but enjoys talking about his opinions anyways, regardless of how amateurish they might be. And with all of that laid out, welcome to my channel, named My Opinion. For my first video, I decided it would be nice and simple to start with a tier list to ease me into the video making process. And I thought what better subject for a tier list than a ranking of Godzilla costume and just visual designs from his mainline films of 1954 to 2024. This means I'll be excluding other forms of Godzilla media, such as the Hanna-Barbera cartoon or the Toho shorts that served as a sort of sequel successor to the Heisey films. All right, very quickly, I just want to go over my plan for this video real quick. Um, as I'm discussing each costume, I'll be discussing the first part of the name, such as Shodai or Rado, but I won't be tagging Goji on the end because it always means the same thing. It's the Godzilla of that film. Just to reiterate, I'll only be talking about mainline films, so Godzilla from 1954, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Tokyo SOS, and along those lines. I won't be talking about variants of Godzilla within corresponding films, so I won't be talking about Minilla, I won't be talking about the Godzillasaur, and I won't be talking about the three different evolutions of baby Godzilla in the Heisey film. Just to also reiterate, I'm not going to have very deep uh, opinions or deep discussions about the costumes or the films. I'm going to have very surface level, very amateurish opinions in this discussion. And finally, I just want to make clear that costume rankings don't necessarily mean the same as film rankings. So if a costume happens to fall in B tier, that does not mean that its film is also in B tier. For all we know, it could be in A tier, it could be all the way in D tier. All right, so here we start with the original 1954's Shodai Godzilla costume, and I will be having a list for all of these design names. There is not a chance I'm going to remember them off the top of my head, no matter how much time you give me. So the original 1954 design, the rule typically is just because it came first does not mean it is the best. But in this case, I believe Shodai is the exception to that rule. It is a fantastic design. The eyes are menacing. There's a particular bulkiness or stockiness to this costume that just gives him a much more significant appearance versus all of his other very bulky, lumbering designs. And I believe that he belongs right here at the very top, here in S. The king remains the king. All right, next up we got 1955's Gyakushu, I think, costume design. There's a lot of mixed opinions on the film Godzilla Raids Again, and there's equally as much discussion and mixed reviews about the costume. When you get down to it, it's a little bit lesser quality than the previous film, and especially when you get to the final scenes of the battle on the iceberg. You get up and close and personal with Godzilla's face. You notice that it has a very triangular goblin kind of appearance. But in the scenes before that, especially when he is first rising out of the waters of Osaka Bay, I believe it is, you notice that he has this very square shouldered, muscular kind of appearance. It's particularly intimidating and surprising how they made him look so powerful with the new sort of posture that he gave him. I'm convinced that if this was the Godzilla design going up against King Kong in 62, it would have been a very different outcome. And for that reason, I think I'm going to put him, as soon as I find him, in bingo, B tier. By means coming off the heels of the original Godzilla, it's definitely a downgraded costume, but I think there are some very creative choices that were made with this particular costume that bring it above the typical feelings of the costume. Moving on about 7 years down the road, we've got 1962's King design. This is my personal favorite Godzilla costume. I love the green tint that they give him, the slouched over dinosaur appearance, the oversized claws, the three toes instead of four, and large dorsal spines, and the sort of liveliness, almost separate character that they give to the tail as they're swinging it around as a wire attachment or a separate prop even that they swing off screen. Um, I think that as an objective sort of ranking, this probably does go, I would say, A tier. I would say definitely A tier because it does not carry the same kind of weight as a costume in S tier does, but I definitely think it deserves to be above most of the rest just because of how much of an upgrade to his personality he had been given, especially after raids again. So now we start getting into a period in Godzilla films where the costume begins to be used multiple times with sometimes slight to sometimes very large noticeable alterations. 1964, we have Mosu. This is a continuance of the more personality driven Godzilla with three toes instead of four, a much livelier tail. Except they start to step back from the hunched over dinosaur theme and they give him his sort of upright posture that you saw in Raids again. This Godzilla has heavier eyebrows, heavier eyelids, and I would say probably about the same size dorsal spines. At this point, I think they stay pretty consistent. As a ranking, I think I would also throw this up to A tier. It is definitely a fan favorite, and it has about the same personality as I would say King Goji. Oh, I even said I wouldn't say Goji, didn't I? While I'm here, actually, I want to discuss how things that fall into the same uh, tier. So here, two things in A. The closer they are, the further they are to the left, closer to the letter, I think ranks them within that particular letter ranking too. So I would say that King Goji is slightly better than the Mosu Goji, which I also believe is a fantastic design. So we move on to 1965, and I should note that the previous costume, Mosu, was used in both 64's Mothra Versus and in the next 64 film, Ghidorah the Three Headed Monster. Here in 1965, we have the Daisenso design, Invasion of the Astro Monsters, a fan favorite, also one of my favorite films. This is when Godzilla developed his sort of anti hero, budding into hero personality. And I think this is when he's sort of at the peak of his sort of uh, acting out. He's stomping all over the place, he's waving his arms, he's communicating with fellow monsters, Rodan and Mothra. Um, he, for the most part, looks the same as Mosu. A couple slight alterations here and there. I think the eyebrow ridges aren't as like sharply defined, and I also think he is also slightly bulkier for this particular costume that I will once again struggle to find. Here it is, him hopping. I would probably put him in, I would say B. It's not like a particularly outstanding costume, and as far as creative liberties go, as far as strikingness goes, I think I would put him behind Gyakushu here. By no means a bad costume. I'm as fond of it as I would be a lot of other costumes, just not the most impressive. So in 1966, we got what is known as the Nankai costume. In fact, from the shoulders down, it is the same costume as the Daisenso, but the head is a slightly imperfect replica of the Daisenso costume. The head itself was removed so that the body could be used for an Ultraman episode. I think it was the one with the frilled Godzilla. Was it Jiros? Something like that. Anyways, uh, because of just how imperfect this costume was, I think you'd be able to notice that compared to Daisenso, it's a much flatter, I think a little bit more of an elongated snout. And the eyes, especially when you zoom in on his eyes, focusing on the human characters or the giant condor or him itching his nose, even, there's nothing scary or intentionally funny about the eyes necessarily. It's just a very off putting and weird visual. I think this costume, and I'd be a little lenient on it because Ebra Horror of the Deep was one of my first Godzilla movies. I have a soft spot for it. I would put it in C. It's not a bad costume by any means. It is 100% Godzilla. The only other criticism I think I give it is, if I remember correctly, his tail, and it's kind of seen in this image too, his tail is very not lively. It kind of just sits limp for a lot of the film, except for when he's maybe fighting the Condor or fighting off the jets, even. All right. The costume from 1967 is known as the Musuko costume, and I'm just gonna go off and say right off the bat, again, I love this costume because of just how silly and dopey it looks. I'm going to be giving it a very realistic ranking, but I just want to discuss how different this costume came out from the last few movies. Again, a very straight postured Godzilla. Um, the neck up is they tried to make him look like Minilla. Uh, the eyes are huge. The eyelids are very very heavy. They fall up and down like curtains. The snout is just smushed in, pretty much almost flesh with his neck. Um, his tail again comes to life a lot in this movie. Well, more than it does with the Nankai costume. But again, this is just a very, very straight standing, very impressively bulky looking Godzilla costume. Again, from the neck down. Um, this is the costume that I think they put a new person into. I forget if Mr. Nakajima was maybe too old or just didn't want to put on heavy costumes anymore, but I believe at the time this was the heaviest costume to be put into a Godzilla production. Um, Again, very realistic ranking. It's silly, it's goofy, it's ugly to look at. I love it, but it belongs. I think it belongs in D tier. Um, while we're talking about tiers here, F tier here is just for show. I could have just gotten rid of it too, but no Godzilla costume or design is going in F. D, as far as I'm concerned, is passing, but this guy, I think he belongs in D tier. I love him. He belongs in D tier. All right, moving on to the Shoshingeki Godzilla. This was used from 1968 to all the way to Godzilla vs. Gigan, I think, 1972. Yeah, slight alterations here and there. I think there's some like narrowings of the forehead and as he gets down the line, especially in versus Gigan, you can definitely tell bits and pieces of plaster and rubber are starting to hang off him a little bit. I don't have much to say about this Godzilla. Again, the versus Son of Godzilla's Musuko costume. Okay, the snout's brought out a little bit more this time. He has about the same posture. The tail comes a little bit more lively again, and he's a little bit more acrobatic in the rest of these films, especially versus Hedorah versus Gigan. Um, I, I don't think it's a particularly impressive costume. I think it goes in C tier. I think I'm gonna put him behind Nankai. I think Nankai has, compared to Shoshingeki, I think that Nankai has just a little bit more of a distinctive appearance and personality. And I think also Nankai was just a little bit more impressive with his sort of water acrobatics, at least moving on top of the water when he's fighting Ebera. All right, we move on to the Ultimate Hero Godzilla. This is when he has passed over his anti-hero or his sort of cautious hero arc and just goes into the very, very child-friendly zone. He is an utmost hero. Some people compared him to the George and the Dragon fable, where he has transcended from the dragon to George, and I would agree completely. This costume is hilarious to me, and unlike the Masuko costume, it's intentionally hilarious. Big eyes, uh, big square-like forehead, elongated snout, standing upright. He's just your very, very hero Godzilla. This is the particular. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is just the same costume that they would use for the rest of Showa 74, 75, except this slight alterations here and there. I think this one is probably the most light-hearted looking and childish of them. Yeah, obvious by his little tree trunk hanging out of his hand, his little is that a lightning post toothpick? I don't know. I would put him, just because of like how outrageous and out of left field this Godzilla design comes into. I think I'm gonna put him C, but I'm gonna put him, I think, at the very top of C. He is very, how do I move him? There we go. He is a very impressive, average looking Godzilla. And we'll just move on to the rest of these guys. This is kind of a bonus thing. I don't have him in the tier list to put in, but I just want to talk about him real fast. This is your phony Godzilla. This is what Mechagodzilla is disguised as in 1974. You can see his little shine piece here that Anguirus knocks off. Speaking of which, that's a very gruesome scene, him sort of almost snapping Anguirus' jaw. But no, this is just a silly little guy. If I would rank him, I'd put him in, I don't know. I'd put him in D just because as a Godzilla design, he's so clumsy looking. Here we have the 74 Megaro Godzilla. He takes on still a very hero, very, very child-friendly appearance, but he's got angrier eyes and a little bit more of a combative appearance. Actually, I'll just lump these guys together. 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla Megaro costume. Same as before, I think he just got a little bit lighter in the eyes this time around, but that same sort of combative appearance. I would lump them together, and in no particular order. I think they would also go in C tier. I would say above, what is it, Shoshingeki, but before Nankai. Where are they? Found them. Boom. No particular order for these two. Where is he? I had him a minute ago. Found him. Nope. There we go. All right, perfect. And that does it for the Showa series. Okay. 1984's Godzilla Returns. Our Godzilla 1984. I don't remember which is which, but we're going to be talking about the Japanese one, 1984. Right off the bat, this design, this reboot is fantastic in all ways except one, I think, but we'll get to that. They just make a very, very scary, modern for the time looking Godzilla. He is an absolute threat the entire length of the movie. They knock him down once with the cadmium bullets, but he just gets right back up. He is just a very terrifying force of nature in this. The scales or the rough skin that they give him this time are just beautiful. They give him back his fourth talons. He has menacing eyes again. He just has a very, very destructive character to him. That is on the subject of the eyes, however. I think that once you get in on his face a little bit, he's got, that very sharp tooth, snarling appearance to him, but I don't think there's a very significant fear factor once you get up close and personal with that face. Compared to 1954, I think that 84, and that is the name of this costume as far as I could find, 84 kind of loses a little bit of his fear factor once you get in on that face. But everything from snout down is just a fantastic Godzilla. Every shot with him, especially when he's passed out, folded over into that large skyscraper behind him, it is just a fantastically shot movie. It is a fantastically coordinated character costume design. Because of that, the eyes again, they're just, it comes so close to being an S tier, but there's just small things here and there. The eyes are just, it borders on goofy. I want to put him though in A tier, top of A tier. I think he's a phenomenal design. Again, one of my favorites, but also I think just a very, very excellently designed costume. All right. This is the part of the Heisey series where herein I think there are some really great movies, a couple more, but the costume, it, I know it fluctuates. He kind of gets a longer snout, a shorter snout, a bulkier appearance. His face gets a little bit more, maybe I think they say cat like. Um, there's some costumes where you can definitely tell he's fatter or maybe more muscular. Maybe the posture changes a little bit here and there, or the eyes and the teeth change here and there. But Heisey, from 1989 up until 1994, they tend to me to look a little samey. Here is the bio Godzilla 1989. I think all Heisey series costumes are good. I think they all belong in at least B tier once you get past 84. In what order though? It's kind of tricky, and I don't know if I'd put them in any sort of order. I think starting with 89. I think starting with bio design, I would like to, and that's assuming this is bio again. They're all kind of samey to me. A lot of Showa series are samey too, but this is very samey. I'm going to put him Bio Godzilla. I'll put him in between Gayakushu and which one is that again? Daisenso? Yeah, I'll put him in between those two. Let's see. Move on from Bio, we get to Gido. And the time travel is weird to me in this movie. It does make sense, I think, when you explain it. I think just showing it on screen, they're trying to follow along with it on screen is a little confusing to me, at least. Placement of Godzilla and all that. But once they give him his monstrous height, and then they kind of change his costume around a little bit, again, samey, but I see the differences. I think I can put him also in B tier, but I would put him above. Where are you? I would put him above Bio. I think the design, from the differences that you notice, I think he's above Bio. All right, move on from 91. We move over to 92, and this is Bato Godzilla. This is what I mean about the sameness. You can look at him from different angles, and you'll pick out some small differences here and there. I'm not seeing a lot of them. I would put him to the right of Guido. Again, better than Bio, I think. I'd put him to the right of Guido just because I think Guido, it established the rest of the Heisei Godzillas up until 1994, but he established the rest of the Godzillas, and I think he might just have a little bit better of a presentation of his bulkiness there. All right, we move on to 93, Rado, or Rado, however you want to put it, Godzilla. This is my favorite movie of the Heisei series, I think. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Fantastic movie. I'm so glad they brought Rodan back. They gave Rodan a lot of time, and as far as giving characters to monsters go, I think Rodan had a fantastic display. I think he was a fantastic character, and the same can be said for Godzilla. Again, same looking as 1991. Well, I don't know. Now I'm looking at him, definitely more similarities to 92. But I'm just going to put them side by side. I'm going to put 93 and 92 together. Why am I using the year? I'm going to put Bato and Rado side by side, no particular order. I like the Godzilla again. I love the movie. But the costume, it's just a little samey to me. Here we are. Here you are. Fantastic. Maybe just because of my bias for loving the movie, I will technically give him an edge over Bato. All right, we got 1994. Nope, that's 95. I've been saying 94 this whole time when I meant 95. Okay, Space Godzilla, 94. And that would be the Moge. I'm going to call it Moge costume. I think Godzilla kind of pulls on a more menacing appearance in this film, carried over then into Destroya. But I struggle to find differences in this costume. I also keep switching over to the wrong screen. I'm going to put this guy in between Rado and Bato. But again, kind of all the same in the end. Okay, then we move on to the final Heisei Godzilla. Burning Godzilla, or in this case, he is an alteration of Moge. This one's called Desu, I think. Desu is just incredible with what they can do with like some slight paint coloration, some lighting up his eyes, giving him this translucent red magma lava meltdown appearance. You believe because of the steam and the smoke pouring off of him, he is ready to melt down. He is constantly on fire, inside, outside. I love this design, and I think he also, Desu, I believe he belongs in A tier, just behind 84. The amount of time and care and personality that went into these two Heisei Godzillas versus King Goji and Masu Godzilla, whatever, I think gives them the edge. Again, I love these two Showa Godzillas a lot. I especially love King, but as far as objectively goes, these two Heisei Godzillas are just phenomenally designed and come just short of being among the best of the best. They're the best of A tier, definitely. Here he is, 1998, Roland Emmerich's Iguana Godzilla. Actually, I think they call him Tora. Don't know why. Here's the deal. I'm going to get on a soapbox for a second. This was my first Godzilla film. I was walking around in a Blockbuster, and I didn't see this particular film displayed. It was actually a copy of Godzilla Millennium, and it was the one where he's like jet black. He's breathing his red atomic breath off of the case. He's kind of twisted around. He's got his very impressive, in the case, red glowing spines. And I remember thinking to myself, that looks like a T Rex and a Stegosaurus combined breathing fire. I like that. And I was a very young kid. I had no idea what Godzilla was. So when we're home a few nights later, I ask my dad if we have any Godzilla movies. And he says, yeah, I think so. So he gives me this VHS of this 1998 TriStar Godzilla. And I remember watching it and cutting its screen time down to like 15 minutes because I only watched the scenes with Godzilla. As I know Godzilla today, no, it's not a great design. I think the story was that they wanted to make a more attractive, a quote unquote sexier Godzilla. That's not a necessary detour you want to take with a very well established design. And yes, I think you could say that from Showa to Heisei, even though he's been even radically altered sometimes, he had a very defined design. This is not an awful design, however. I think it's low. I think it's in D tier, and I'm going to put that there in a second, but it is not an awful, terrible movie. Again, on my soapbox, I'm going to tell you this is not even the worst Godzilla movie ever. This is not the worst design ever. It is a very misguided experiment. It is a very misguided concept. But I think it has some redeeming factors to it. I think that this Godzilla was very good for sense of scale. I think that even though it was, in retrospect, a very clumsily computer generated Godzilla, I think they managed to create a very impressive size, sense of size and scale. You know, I'm again putting him in D tier. I think it's perfectly acceptable. I believe this movie and the design deserve a lot of criticism, but it's not the worst thing to ever come out of Godzilla. It is not the worst thing to come out of an American adaptation of a foreign, or in this case, very foreign, a Japanese license. I think that if people want to rank it as the worst thing to ever come out of an adaptation ever, especially for Godzilla, I think it's a little bit of a dramatization. Not good. Not a good movie. Not a good design. Passable. Everything about it in movie and design is passable. And so I step off my soapbox. And coming right off of 1998's less than impressive film, we have 1999's Godzilla Millennium. Coming off of 1998, what a turnaround. Obviously, because it fell back into Japanese hands. Just a fantastic, fantastic reboot. Very, very Saurian, very just rich in, I think, color, even though it's a very basic color. I think it's very rich in color. I think that the rough skin is just, it looks great. It looks gravelly, rocky, jagged. I love it. The dorsal spines are the best that they have ever looked, I think. I think it was just a fantastic idea to just make him not even scary, just a very, very savage and a very, I guess you could say edgy, right? Yeah, I'd say edgy. A very well done edgy Godzilla design, and the permanent scowl, the permanent angry eyebrows that they give him. I just think it is a very well put together costume. I love this one very much. I think it belongs right, I'm going to say S tier. Once I finish this, I might reevaluate some things. I think it's a lot of people might think it's bold to put Millennium's costume in S tier, but I just think that especially coming out of the sameness, I think, again, of the Heisey series, and especially off of 1998. Just this new primal design coming at you full force, I think is a very, very excellent display. I think it belongs in S tier. Behind 1994. Oh, I didn't even tell you the name of this one. 1999. That is, Meyer Goji. Meyer Godzilla. I'm not saying Goji, even though I am. Yes, S tier. I think it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal costume. I love it to death. So this is Meyer again. This is obviously this is 2000, the one where he fought Mega Gears. Because they did it once. Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt to do it again. I'm gonna actually just keep him down here. I don't think there were enough alterations done to justify calling this a separate costume. They might have given him slightly lighter green. Maybe they touched up the snout, but if you put these two side by side, maybe except for the color, I would not be able to tell for the life of me. So let's move on to another very radical Godzilla. Let's see. 2001, this is the Sokogeki Godzilla. A very, very terrifying design where Meyer Goji was very, very edgy, very savage and primal, but not, I don't think, scary. This is a scary Godzilla. He's possessed by sailors. They took the original Shodai Godzilla and they shrunk his pupils down non-existent. Just white eyes. The dorsal spines are a little different from everything. They're definitely not as spiky, obviously, as Meyer, but they're more prominent, I think, than either Showa or Heisey. And this guy's posture, again, they were going a little Saurian again in the Millennium series, but this guy, Sokogeki, just a very haunting and very powerful Godzilla. Eyes, posture, everything, just very, very intimidating, very fearsome Godzilla. I will put him in A. Where is he? How do I keep doing this? Oh, here he is. I'm putting him in A. Again, above the Showas. I don't know, though, if I want to put him above the Heiseys. I like the Heisey Godzillas a lot. I think he's going to be smack dab in the middle of very impressive, just because I think the Heiseys have just a little bit more of an impressive stance and personality to them. Yeah, I think I'm okay with putting him there. Again, I might reevaluate, might not, but I think I'm comfortable putting him smack dab in the middle of impressive, A tier. All right, we move on to Kiryu Godzilla. Kiryu is also the Mechagodzilla he would go on to fight, but yes, 2002. We get back a little bit to the Meyer Goji, except this time he's not necessarily as savage looking. He's a very powerful Godzilla in the film. We've got his spikiness everywhere back. We've got a little bit of a dinosaur-like posture, but a little bit more upright. I don't know. He's great. Again, he wouldn't go any lower than B tier, but he's not. I don't know. I don't think I put him up in the A ranks just because I don't know. I'm gonna put him at the top of B because this is a very good Godzilla. This is very impressive. I think he definitely trumps way over the Gyakushu Godzilla, definitely. But I don't think I think he misses. I think he misses the edge to get up to A tier, and I think the same is gonna go for the SOS Godzilla. I don't know if I should call him SOS or Wounded, but this scar here. He also, I think, takes on just a little bit more of a menacing appearance, at least at this angle. But I think the battle hardness, the battle hardened, I don't know what to call him. The worn down Godzilla, the wounded Godzilla, I think is also going to go at the very, very top of B tier. I like him a lot, and I think just that addition of that nice little scar in his chest puts him right now at the head of the pack of B tier. I'm not going to be able to give a very good opinion of these two Godzillas here because I just don't have much to say about them, I think. But let's round out the Millennium series with another one of my favorite Godzilla designs, Final Godzilla. The final costume is just an excellent design. I think that he is just everything great about Godzilla costumes in the lumped all together. You've got these excellent combination of Meyer Godzilla, but also traditional like Showa Godzilla dorsal spines. I think that his head has that weird sort of triangular shape of Gyakushu, except, not goblin in appearance. It's much more of a sort of very, very savage, kind of warrior-like appearance. I think his posture is great. I think that his just overall acrobatic prowess in the film is fantastic, and that's probably thanks to the suit actor, but it's just a very, very fantastic, well-built, well-designed Godzilla costume. I love this design very much. I think I would put him at the top of A tier. I think he edges out both of these Heisei Godzilla designs just because of how he is a little bit of all great, like Showa, Heisei, Millennium costumes. I think he's a fantastic Godzilla design. Very excellently done. And just shy of S tier. We are at the legendary Godzilla and the start of the legendary MonsterVerse franchise. 2014 Gareth Edwards Godzilla was my first theater experience with Godzilla. And I thought for the most part it was very much well worth it. This Godzilla, to me, was extremely effective, even though I think we can all agree he is the fat Godzilla. I thought he was effective because of Gareth Edwards' direction, because of his ability to hold Godzilla back up till really unleashing him at the very end. Yeah, you get little teases of him here and there, and that's what was so great about it. You build up to this climactic reveal, this full body reveal and battle with the Mutos. Mutos, by the way, I think are a very fantastic monster villain. But the 2014 design of Godzilla is, I think, beautiful. I think that the dullness of the spines in this scenario, I think, are very well made. I think that as far as computer generated Godzillas go, he is, because of technology mostly, but also because of the mastery of it in 2014, I think he is well and above 1998's Iguana Godzilla design. What is this one called in particular? This is the Gare Godzilla design because of Gareth, so we'll call him Gareth. This is Gareth Godzilla, everybody. A very impressive Godzilla, once again, a very impressively statured, very powerful looking Godzilla. I would put this one, and I'm going to be at a slight bias because it was my first theatrical experience. I'm going to put him above the Showa Godzillas of A. Man, I'm really knocking them back a bit. But a fantastic Godzilla, a very fantastic American Godzilla. I think Gareth Edwards had the very right idea of the direction he took this particular Godzilla. All right, moving on. All right, so 2016, the Shin Godzilla. Shin is terrifying, yes, intentionally so. He is a very very terrifying beast. And like I said, there's multiple evolutionary steps of this Godzilla. I am sticking with the one that really left the impression on everybody, the one with the just the fully destructive capabilities of breathing his atomic breath all over the place, the kind of slow burn of the whole thing turning into this nice little jet of purple blowing out of his spines, everything. It's a very, very, very destructive, terrifying, and effective Godzilla. This is, I think, also probably the slowest Godzilla. There is an eeriness in the way he steps. There is an eeriness in the way he does everything. There's an eeriness in his display of pain when those bombs or missiles drop on him. He is, for not having an expression and for only having like one kind of speed, he is a very, very, I think he is a very personality, a very high personality Godzilla. I have to put that guy. I think he belongs in S right now. People could say it's a very overhyped Godzilla. And I think on my rewatching of the movie, I found myself a little bit more bored, actually, anytime Godzilla wasn't on screen. But as far as this design goes, I don't think there's any, like, sort of overhype or tryhardness to it. I think this is a very, very, very effective Godzilla. All right, so 2019, 18, I don't remember. Godzilla King of the Monsters, and this is who's the director? Duarte. Well, this Godzilla is called Doughe, so I'm gonna call him Doe. This is Doughy Godzilla. Doe is about more of the same as the Gareth Edward Godzilla. I don't know if they might have bulked him up a little bit more. His dorsal spines have more detail to them. They're coming closer to the Godzilla dorsal spines we know, except a little spikier. I think there's just more of the same. I think his atomic breath might be a little bit more impressive too, but I mean that's not his constant on screen design. I think it's a lot of sameness, and I think I'll put him. Again, it's the same Godzilla for the most part. I'll put him in A tier, but behind Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, because I don't think he packed the same punch as Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. Again, just my opinion, just my very, very lowly amateur opinion. I know this movie has a huge following, and actually I think it was a gateway for many people into Godzilla, and I think those people have a very rabid defense of this Godzilla too. Again, fantastic, just mostly the same with Gareth Edwards. Gareth Edwards did it first. I think it had a more impactful screen appearance. Okay, all right. This Godzilla is just so funny to me. I think he's the fattest of the legendary MonsterVerse Godzillas. Again, more of the same. Dorsal spines are probably the biggest they've been. Just a very, very silly movie. I like the Godzilla design again, but I'm gonna put him behind King of the Monsters. He's just a silly guy. This is also Doe Godzilla. This is also Doughy. Yep, right there. We're gonna kind of treat these guys as the same. I might separate Gareth Edwards from these two, maybe, but he's Doughy Godzilla's Doughy. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, easy. Minus Godzilla, easily second place S tier. My third Godzilla theater experience, I watched Godzilla vs. Kong on HBO Max. So it was Godzilla 2014, King of the Monsters. Third movie I saw in theaters was -1. Excellent movie. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I didn't get bored for a second. I was invested in Godzilla as much as I was invested in human characters. Just everything was very well done. I do not think anybody would agree, anyways, that there's an overratedness to it. I don't think hardly anybody says that, anyways. It is just an excellent Godzilla movie from start to finish. And the only thing that it doesn't have going for it, this is going to sound stupid, but I just think it's the rule exception. It's just not the first Godzilla movie. That's it. Fantastic Godzilla design. I guess I didn't even talk about the design much. Just an excellent design. It is Heisei Godzilla perfected. The spines are fantastic. The skin is fantastic. The constant, just angry, painful scowl on his face, fantastic. The way he moves, the way he swims, that boat chasing scene is terrifying. Everybody says it's terrifying because it is. A fantastic Godzilla. Through and through. It is Godzilla through and through, and that is why he is right up there behind the original, because he is Godzilla through and through. What does that mean? Aren't all these Godzillas Godzilla? Yeah, but this one's the second most Godzilla. All right, that's an easy one. It's a quick one, so I can move on to our final one. This is Do Godzilla again. I don't know what his slimmed down version is called. We're gonna call him what's the opposite of doughy? Lean. We'll call him lean Godzilla. I like him. I thought it was kind of stupid silly at first when I saw the trailer, him running and everything, but everybody and their mother reminded me that Godzilla's done silly crap all through his movies, kind of like halfway through Showa, but he's been silly for a very long time. And they didn't get too ridiculous in this movie, I don't think. This Godzilla's design is, I think, very okay. I think that he can go in B tier. He doesn't have the weight and the impact, I think, of all of the other legendary Godzillas, especially Gareth Edwards. I think he's going to be on the higher end, though. I think I'd put him above the Heisei. I think I'd put him above all the rest of these Heisei Godzillas. I'm going to put him below Raids Again. I'm going to put him below Gyakushu's Godzilla, just because I have this incredibly weird soft spot for Gyakushi, but I also objectively think that Gyakushi is an effective B tier Godzilla. Lean Godzilla here with the pink frills and everything. He's fine. He's okay. He belongs in the sort of higher end of B tier. He's okay there. I like him. I like all these designs, kind of, but I think final form Lean Do Godzilla is very okay in B tier. All right, and that wraps up my Godzilla tier list. I'm sure everybody has a couple of strong agreements, and then the rest are probably going to be very strong disagreements, or they're going to think, yeah, why not? These guys could be interchangeable somewhere here in B and C. But I really enjoyed making this video. I want to thank any of you and all of you for joining me. I just had a very good time doing this, and I look forward to hopefully making more in the future. All right, goodbye.